And we all lost, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, we lost something important in America today. But the case goes on. The investigation goes on. There's a lot of piecing of evidence together. We don't have a shooter tonight. We have a couple leads, a couple people that were released that probably aren't the shooter. There's a couple hot leads. There's a little bit of foreign intelligence. And I think over the next couple of days, we will learn a lot more. And hopefully we will bring to justice the evil person who did what they did to Charlie today.
So by now, you've seen the news of Charlie Kirk's assassination. It's all over everyone's feed. This is absolutely disgusting. With the FBI saying there's foreign intelligence involved. Listen to what Patrick David says right here.
If an event like this happens to somebody on the opposing side the next 48 hours, the next week, think about the equivalent of Charlie Kirk on the other side. If an event like this happens on the opposing side, you have to know a country on the outside wants to see a civil war in America. That concerns me a lot.
And even Netanyahu announced that Charlie Kirk had been assassinated 20 minutes after the shooting. This was before any official American news source and before Trump's announcement. So how did Israel know this soon? Well, if you listen to the recent interviews and what Charlie was saying before his assassination, well, listen to what Charlie says about Israel.
So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still had the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that's an IDF soldier, right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here. But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand-down order? Was there a stand-down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. I was texting with some senior people in the IDF, and they said, Charlie, can't say too much, but let's just say the same problem you have with the left in America we have here in Israel. So there's something to think about. Just something to think about, right? Is that maybe there's some people within those intel agencies that aren't as sympathetic. Or maybe, Patrick, maybe they might have gotten a tip. They might have gotten whispers. But there are some serious questions here, Patrick. And let me tell you, my pattern recognition over the last 5 years has become pretty sharp. COVID, Maui fires, Epstein. When I see a story and it doesn't click, our guts are usually right.
In literally 48 hours before he was assassinated, Charlie Kirk asked some very critical questions.
Maybe we should also ask a question. Is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question. Maybe we shouldn't believe everything the media says, because I know I've been conditioned to ask a lot more critical questions.
So yesterday was a turning point for the United States, but not only that, a turning point for Israel-U.S. relations. Less than 24 hours and the internet is trying to figure out who the most likely culprit was. If you watch some of the replay footage, I'm not going to play the footage of him being shot because it's that bad. You've probably already seen it, but right here, this guy, he was caught on camera right before the assassination and touching his hat, then touching his ear, and then the shooter took the shot. And now there's no stopping what happens next. So what are your guys' thoughts on all of this? Do you think it's some deranged person from the left that just didn't agree with his opinions? Or do you think it's some type of foreign intelligence designed to push America closer and closer to a civil war? Because all that I'm seeing all over my social media feed is the horrible reactions by many on the left celebrating his death. And even an uproar in the European Parliament today where politicians wanted a minute of silence for Charlie, but the left refused.
Madam President, dear colleagues, the murder of political activist Charlie Kirk, a husband, loving father, and patriot, has shocked the world. We must strongly condemn political violence and rhetoric that incites violence. Please stand with me in reflection and prayer in his honor, and I yield the rest of my time for a moment of silence.
Herr Kollege Weimers, wir haben abgesprochen und Sie wissen, dass die Präsidentin... Well, we have discussed this, and you know that the president said no to 8 minutes of silence. We come to Mr. Bonaccini's reports.
Sehr geehrte Kolleginnen und Kollegen, sehr geehrte Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Sie können noch weitermachen.
So the goal here was to silence the most eloquent truth teller of an era. And this is well said by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. here. Charlie was one of the country's most relentless and courageous crusaders for free speech. And Donald Trump posted this saying, "No one had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all." And although Charlie went out in the most legendary way possible, speaking up about what he believed in, the sad part about this is he left his family, his wife and his kids now have to grow up without him. And so there's literally no words that I can say other than Charlie fought a good fight here. You know, he finished the race today. He met his savior. So God bless this man. Pray for his family. And rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. So personally, I think it'd be a great idea for college campuses to put up a memorial for him to remember this. Because this is more than just an assassination attempt here on Charlie. This is an assassination attempt on free speech simply because someone doesn't agree with what you say. Listen, Charlie always welcomed people to come and debate him and have a productive conversation. And when someone can't agree with you, turning to violence is never the answer. I mean, look at this right here. This is in my hometown, Idaho, at the Boise State Capitol here. And some a-hole rode through here, basically screaming F Charlie Kirk, and he promptly got his ass beat. So the people have had enough. And for anyone to celebrate an assassination attempt like this has clearly got some mental issues going on. So what I think Patrick David here says holds some massive weight, because if you go on your social media, you're going to see the consciousness in the mob of everyone saying that it's the left and liberals are to blame. And I'm not saying that that's not true, but one thing I do ask you to critically think about here is if on September 9th, Charlie Kirk's final interview featuring Ben Shapiro as a guest, 10 minutes into the discussion, he openly and objectively asked a question concerning his position on Israel.
Some people would accuse Israel of wanting to ethnically cleanse.
Asking the most uncomfortable questions everyone has been thinking about.
That Epstein, with his little friend Ghislaine and Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, who was obviously a spy of the Israeli intelligence agencies, that there was something else going on here.
In Netanyahu announcing the assassination just 20 minutes after the shooting, and then the police arrested 2 fake shooters and let them go later, and then the main shooter ran away while everyone is focused on fake shooters' arrests. They still have not released information about the main shooter, and the FBI is admitting that foreign intelligence may be involved. Plus, on top of that, Charlie said a few days ago that the Department of Justice should release all the Epstein files. It's not irrational to completely write off that there was something much bigger going on behind the scenes because of how much influence this man had. And everybody knows that there's no stopping what comes next. Charlie's been on so many different podcasts and interviews, and here's what he even said about the crypto space when asked if he holds any Bitcoin.
Are you pro-crypto? I've never seen you talk about crypto. Yeah,
very pro-crypto.
You got some Bitcoin?
I actually have better stuff than that. I am a significant investor in the plumbing of how crypto is made.
Really?
So I won't say any more than that, but done some good private equity deals in the actual back end on the technology of actually blockchain on how all these coins go public. Now, not Bitcoin itself, but of all the other types of coins. And so if you are long on crypto, I encourage people to understand that there is a needed multi-billion-dollar infrastructure that needs to be there to actually for all these coins to be able to go through process, to be made public, to go through ICOs. But yes, I'm very pro crypto, and I got some coins.
And here's what he said when asked about a strategic Bitcoin reserve.
What are your thoughts on Bitcoin?
I'm a big fan of Bitcoin.
Should the U.S. do a Bitcoin reserve?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, the United States should have a strategic Bitcoin reserve.
And who should pay for the Bitcoin reserve?
That's a good question. Hopefully, some of the tariff money could potentially do that. The reason why I think we should have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, I know you guys had Michael Saylor on your show, and I think he's onto something. There is something called like the mass adoption theory, which is over a period of time, like the English language, US dollar, things just catch on and they're just kind of volitional and there's no stopping it. I think Bitcoin is that. You got to watch out though. Quantum computing could potentially crack cryptography.
But if they do that, then they're also cracking bank accounts.
Right.
And stock trading accounts.
So quantum is the only asterisk on all this. But I think Saylor is onto something very profound, which is that because Bitcoin is a scarce, legitimately scarce resource, that it's probably going to go nowhere but up. So Saylor makes a very provocative argument that Bitcoin could go up 10x over the next 10 years or something like that, which therefore, if we start a Bitcoin strategic reserve, it could like pay for the national debt and like basically
cover our losses on the deficit. But I think that I think the United States government should be invested in crypto without a doubt.
I tend to agree with Michael Saylor that it's more likely to go to 1 million than 0.
Yes, I think that's right. And by the way, so you have a problem of the world's richest people. They don't know where to put their money. So there's only so many penthouses in London and Paris that they could buy. There's only so many ranches in Wyoming that they could buy. And so we had this problem. So you create all this money, the money goes upwards to wealth inequality point, to your earlier point. The question is then, well, what do rich people do with money? There's only so many equities they can buy. There's only so many shares in NVIDIA and Apple and Microsoft they could justify. Well, money needs to find a home, and it's found a home in Bitcoin. And so once it has mass adoption, and literally the wealthiest families on the planet are starting to park serious monies in Bitcoin. And because it's scarce, it's easy to transfer, and it's just a winner. Sometimes there's a mass adoption, and it just rises to the surface, and I think Bitcoin is that.
So if one of the most brightest minds and key influential figures for not only college students, but the youth all across the globe was just assassinated for free speech, and he's a big believer in crypto, he's a big believer in Bitcoin, well, I think we need to pay attention to what happens next, because many of you guys know who Ray Dalio is as well. He's an American billionaire and hedge fund manager, and he wrote this book right here called The Changing World Order. He is saying that America's debt-induced heart attack will happen in 3 years. And if you haven't seen this video right here, I highly suggest watching this. It's about 43 minutes long. It's called Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order. Listen to what he says right here.
Changing orders. Over the last few years, 3 big things that hadn't happened in my lifetime prompted me to do this study. First, countries didn't have enough money to pay their debts, even after lowering interest rates to 0. So their central banks began printing lots of money to do so. Second, big internal conflicts emerged due to growing gaps in wealth and values. This showed up in political populism and polarization between the left, who want to redistribute wealth, and the right, who want to defend those holding the wealth. And third, increasing external conflict between a rising great power and the leading great power, as is now happening with China and the United States. So I looked back. I saw that all these had happened together before, many times, and nearly always led to changing domestic and world orders. The last time this sequence happened was from 1930 to 1945. What exactly is an order, you might ask? It's a governing system for people dealing with each other. There are internal orders for governing within countries, typically laid out in constitutions. And there is a world order for governing between countries, typically laid out in treaties. Internal orders change at different times than world orders, though whether within or between countries, these orders typically change after wars. Civil wars within countries, international wars between countries. They happen when revolutionary new forces defeat weak old orders.
So not only are we going through an internal conflict here between the left and the right, leading us closer and closer to a civil war, but we're going through a financial conflict as well. You can see this with the yield curve inversion here, and every single time that the 10-year to 2-year has spiked back up, we've seen a recession shortly after that, going all the way back to the 1980s. Now, I've discussed this in previous videos, and I'm not going to get into too much detail in this video because we've already explained that to you guys on this channel. But when we look at the crypto market here, we can see that the biggest institutions, portfolio managers, hedge funds, and the smartest investors in the world, and political figures like Charlie Kirk, have been bullish on the crypto industry. So over the past year, we've seen a variety of projects absolutely take off. And even over the past week, certain projects explode, like MYX exploded over 1,000%. But if you don't know what to look for in these markets, you can get absolutely destroyed. I posted this in our free Discord through the link in the description below, talking about a bearish divergence on MYX's chart on the relative strength index, and also the stochastic RSI as well, in a reversal coming. And that was right here on the chart. Just to give you an example, if you look at the stochastic RSI all the way up here at 92, for the K line, the D line, the relative strength index has been putting in lower highs. And we're also seeing a bearish divergence of lower highs on the MACD, signaling a sell-off was due. And if you look at what happened shortly after that, it's exactly what happened. We saw a sell-off in MYX. Now, this bearish divergence played out for a while, and we barely made a higher high right here on the candle body closes. And so MYX has been rolling over in price, signaling that a reversal is coming. So if you were just a new investor diving into the crypto market and seeing on cryptobubbles.net this project taking off, and then you go and buy it without understanding things like what we're talking about in the Discord here, then you would have been absolutely wrecked, because look at what happened on the price chart after that post from $17.66, literally right here at this horizontal line right here. This is $17.70. Look at what the price has done. Now we're sitting at $12, doing exactly what I showed you in this post. And you might be wondering, how did I know that this was going to happen? Well, when you know exactly what to look for on the price chart and spot confluence for certain cryptocurrencies, and you don't just believe everything that you see on social media, you don't just listen to hype, and you could use your own discernment here, whether it be through technical analysis, fundamental analysis, even things that happen in politics, you name it. A lot of people just don't think for themselves here. And that's how they lose their sanity, that's how they lose their morality, and that's how they lose financially as well. So our goal here on this channel is to help you guys not only protect your finances, but to think for yourself. And if you want to surround yourself with other free thinkers, we do have a free Discord group through the link below. You guys can check that out. There's about 748 members in here. Now, this was a pretty difficult video for me to make today, because to talk about what happened with Charlie Kirk, there's just no words that I can use to describe it. And every single day we talk about crypto on this channel, so it's tough to make a transition to go from what just took place to what's happening in the markets. But I think it's important to focus on how we can all prepare for what's inevitable and what's truly coming. Listen to what the SEC chairman, Paul Atkins, said about crypto here.
And today, ladies and gentlemen, we must admit that crypto's time has come. For too long, the SEC has weaponized its investigatory, subpoena, and enforcement authorities to subvert the crypto industry. That approach was not only ineffective, but injurious. It drove jobs, innovation, and capital overseas. American entrepreneurs bore the brunt and have been forced to spend fortunes on building a legal defense instead of a business.
So this is very important, because just like Charlie said when he was asked if he has any Bitcoin, his response was all about the plumbing. And what is plumbing? Well, plumbing is infrastructure. And what company is focusing on the plumbing in the infrastructure in the crypto space? Well, that's none other than Ripple. So a lot of people say that XRP is all hype, it's a meme coin, it's not going to be used, you name it. But listen to this clip right here.
I tell them what a gratis vendor is.
Yeah.
Because I was not going to go into the government. I was doing transition.
What is a gratis vendor?
A gratis vendor is an approved vendor for the United States of America that gives product to the government, doesn't sell it.
Okay.
So therefore, I don't have to go through the whole process of becoming a proper vendor, because you're giving it to us. And then if you give it to Article 2, which is the president's stuff, then the president can accept it, right? Because it's give.
Sorry, Howard, what's an example of this? Like, just to make
I write some software.
You write some software.
I write some software for the Commerce Department to do a better job of XYZ. You just give it to me. And then I do QA on it, and I can take it. If you sell it to me for $1, we go into government hell.
Right, the whole rigmarole.
And if you look at what has just happened recently, the SEC lawsuit against Ripple is done. Gary Gensler is out of office. Paul Atkins, the guy that I just played that clip from, the head of the SEC, is now pro-crypto. Listen to what Brad Garlinghouse said about the lawsuit in XRP.
The SEC is going to end up with a $50 million. The U.S. government's going to get $50 million. We even talked about making that available in XRP.
So could it be that when Brad Garlinghouse and Stuart Alderati met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, Ripple likely allocated XRP to the U.S. Treasury and Strategic Crypto Reserve, positioning the government for financial dominance? And could this be a plausible way for paying off the national debt? Ripple donates the escrow to the U.S. government. XRP and RippleNet become the premier settlement layer and infrastructure and the plumbing for the global reset. And even Grant Cardone's brother, Gary Cardone, posted this saying, wait for it, Ripple donates 45% of its supply to the U.S. government to gain access. 11th hour scenario, XRP Hail Mary offers to donate half of the entire XRP supply. And would that entice the government to place XRP into at least the stockpile? So we needed answers here. What was really discussed in that meeting between Brad, Stuart, and Trump? Well, I find it very interesting that right after Brad Garlinghouse posted this picture saying great dinner last night with Donald Trump and Stuart Alderati said, and to top it off, the beef bourguignon was really good. So you obviously know that this type of dish is served as a celebration dish or after a big business deal. So why would Stuart go out of his way to say, and to top it off, the dish was really good, is that code word for basically saying they gave some XRP in escrow to the government, all while Ripple has been working on the plumbing and the infrastructure for the new global financial system in the changing world order. Well, look at what Brad Garlinghouse reposted here a few days ago. These are indisputable XRP facts. Number one, XRP has been used for remittances and cross-border payments for years and will continue to do so. Number two, XRP is a lot more than just what Ripple is doing. See real-world assets, equity, asset tokenization, DeFi, NFTs, etc. Hundreds or even thousands of projects building on top of the XRP ledger or implementing XRP. Number three, RLUSD is rapidly closing in on $1 billion market cap and a top 100 token. It will be a backbone of liquidity for DeFi on the XRP ledger, and stablecoins will eat banks alive if they don't adopt or implement current stablecoins dominating the market. Number four, publicly traded companies are buying XRP to hold on their balance sheet, and there are 15 XRP ETFs waiting for approval by the SEC. So it's not a matter of if, it's just when they approve them, and the next date they have to decide is in October, next month. Number five, XRP is the third highest market cap layer 1 project. It has one of the highest holder bases in all of crypto, and it's been the longest in the top 10 outside of Bitcoin. So it's very clear that it's not going away, which is why we've been making videos about crypto and specifically about XRP for the past few years. And if you subscribe to the channel, we're going to continue to cover news that pops up, even as uncomfortable as it is, like discussing the truth behind the assassination of Charlie Kirk. My goal here is not to spread conspiracy theories, it's to get to the bottom of what's actually taking place in this country and to encourage you to critically think for yourself. As always, do your own research. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you to buy any crypto or even sell any crypto because these videos are purely for educational, informational purposes only. So I'll finish with this. Yesterday we lost a legend, and the attempt to silence free speech is only going to strengthen the American patriotism spirit. So never let anyone silence your truth. Speak up for what you believe in. Show respect to those around you. And as always, you know what to do. Stay bullish.